Okay, guys, you're joined here today with myself, Matthew Ceddia. Mat Stella is coming soon, and today what we're going to be talking about is Bitcoin going to continue its uptrend, or are we coming up to a time where things are going to start to look a little bit scary? To everyone who's just jumped on this stream that hasn't yet subscribed, we go live every single Friday to bring you guys some crypto alpha. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you smash the like button to help us get this stream out to more people. So we're going to start off today's call by taking a quick look at the Bitcoin chart. And I'm just going to open this up here. And just looking at the Bitcoin chart, we can see that we were in I like to call this a Wyckoff reaccumulation zone, where we faked out to the top level. We got a nice amount of short squeezes take place there, and then price came back down below the support. This is where the big guys tend to load up before then reclaiming this next level here now as a level of support. One thing that's really important, guys, and I can see Matty Stella in the chat. Matty Stella was meant to be on this live stream all the way over from UK, but his laptop isn't working. Let him know in the chat that he's a slack ass and should have got a better laptop or should have got it fixed. What we usually see, guys, in this kind of a pattern, if I just bring this over to the Ethereum chart, we saw a much similar pattern play out not too long ago. So let me just zoom out and just bring that up for you. You can see here Ethereum basically very, very similar, where we had that really nice sweep. We'll call this the sweep of the lows, straight down the bottom of that level of support. The big guys, they accumulated their bags. Price then came back up, created this sideways range, but then what did it do? It came down one last time to then sweep these last minute buyers, and also to make it look like it was faking out below the level of support. You can see that there, it put in that wick just below. That more or less scared a lot of people out of the market before the market, I'm going to call them the manipulators, but the market makers, they then reclaimed that trend line and reclaimed that level of support, then pushed price quite quickly, actually, straight back to the top of the range. Now, this is a very, very common pattern that we're now seeing in the crypto markets now that we have a lot of institutions playing the game with us. And I'm expecting something very similar now to take place on Bitcoin, where right now we do still have that level of support that got broken, but has not yet been retested. So I made the title of this video, is it going to be the boom or the bust? And the thing is right now, I think that we're going to be positioned for a more medium-term boom, but a more shorter-term bust. And right now, you can see that with the amazing, the amazing news that came out regarding the interest rates, which we're going to cover shortly. Right now, pretty much every Tom, Dick, and Abdul is bullish on the market, and I think that this is a good opportunity now for the market makers to come and sweep everyone out. Before we do get into a bit more of the actual news and the alpha of the day, I did just want to point out this chart. This was a great chart by one of the analysts that I like to follow on X. His name is James Van Stratton, a crypto OG, been around for a long time, is a senior analyst at CoinDesk. And he has come out and said that since July 2024, Bitcoin has usually bottomed in the first 10 days of each month. So just something to take note of if you are a trader, that Bitcoin tends to more or less find its local bottom within the first 10 days of the month, with the last half of the month usually being somewhat bullish. And that's just what we've seen based on previous data. Now, as always, previous data can't predict future trends, but definitely something to keep in mind when doing your analysis. One thing that's really important is that usually September, it can be a bit of a rough run. You find that September's can be a little bit red, and that's because there's a lot of news events that come up in September, and a couple of those which we're going to go through today. But today, this September, you can see we are already quite positive. However, October tends to be quite a bullish month, October and November, producing a large amount of gains. So your job right now is to make sure you do not get liquidated, okay? Make sure that you're in the game. And yes, guys, suss out the beautiful background that we are here today. We have here today. I'm not at my usual office in Melbourne. I am actually up at my caravan park. I got a little cabin here where I like to go jet skiing, and I thought, you know what, for a change of scenery, well, I'm going to come to you here since I'm a little bit scenic, and Matty Stella, who's also meant to be on this call. He's actually in another location as well. So we thought we'd do a little bit of a rural trip. So more importantly, let's keep an eye on what is to come for October. And for me personally, if I'm looking at Bitcoin, and once again, this is not financial advice. This is just me telling you more or less what I'm looking at as an analyst. I'm hoping to see Bitcoin come down to retest this level one more time before then making its moves towards those upper levels of this channel. And this is where I'm hoping to see a consolidation at this top level of this channel, something like this, and then boom, I'm expecting to end this the rest of this year quite strong. So let's go into some of the alpha. Why do I think we're going to see a potential pullback? So tonight, this post was made yesterday, but tonight we're going to see $4.9 trillion in stock and ETF options expire. Now, this is being called triple witching. And when we see this event, we tend to see large amounts of volatility in the market. And this is something that's going to be occurring tonight. And we're probably going to see a majority of the volume start to kick in once the US market opens in the next, say, 5 or 6 hours, 6.5 hours from now. Now, previously, and I went through some of this data with our premium community on Tuesday. I went through this and I had a look, and previously, this triple witching tends to happen almost every September, but I did run some data, and in September's where we have rate cuts, the triple witching event has actually not ended too bad. With the average of 5 days after the triple witching event, the prices have seen approximately, and don't quote me on it because I haven't got the tab open right now, but approximately a 3% gain. So whilst it is scary, we do see a lot of analysts talking about this right now. I'm not too worried, although I do know that tonight we are going to see, well, there's a very high potential, I should say, to see quite a bit of volatility. So historically, such large expirations have caused downward volatility for stocks and crypto. In March 2025, this crash led for about 2 to 3 weeks. In June 25, the BTC consolidated for a month and also dropped below 100K. Now, the options will happen tomorrow, and people are building up huge leverage positions. People are building up both longs and shorts. And we've seen this over and over again. The leverage will be flushed, dips will come, and then Bitcoin can rally to an all-time high. And here's what it looked like previously, where we saw, bang, we saw this nice little pullback, and that was in 2025. And then once again in June, nice little pullback before then continuing the rally. So going back to what I was saying earlier, if the market maker knows that everyone thinks the market is hyper bullish right now, it definitely opens up the door for a potential opportunity where the market makers can come down. They know everyone's bullish. They're going to go stop out everybody's longs. Let this confirm as a level of support over the next few days, and then we're looking at potentially running that up until the end of the month. Samuel Thompson in the chat, bro, is looking like he is streaming from the local homeless shelter. Sammy, I'm actually out on the backyard. It's a beautiful day here. It's nice and sunny. We don't get many sunny days here in Melbourne, so I'll be honest with you, I'm just trying to make the most of it because it's probably going to piss down tomorrow. So, all right, let's get into some of the data. So, what we saw this week was that interest rates in the US have finally been cut. And interest rates being cut can be looked at in two different scenarios. Interest rates get cut, and this is how it's going to affect Bitcoin, of course, but interest rates can get cut usually when the US economy is in a little bit of trouble. But what they like to do is they like to cut when inflation is low and when unemployment is high. What we have seen this time round is a cut whilst inflation has been high and also whilst unemployment has been low. The issue with this is when we do get a rate cut, what we find is that money becomes cheaper. What do we know? When money becomes cheaper, people like to take out more and more loans. They take out more money, and that money tends to trickle, some of it, not all of it, tends to trickle into the markets like crypto, like stocks, and like many other things. Now, what we are seeing right now is as more money gets borrowed, more people are spending, and that raises inflation. Okay, so usually they raise the interest rates to lower the inflation, and they lower interest rates, which can lead to higher inflation. The issue that we're seeing right now is that we're getting interest rate cuts at a time when inflation is very high, approximately 2.9%. And if these interest rates are coming in now, it's been done, this is going to cause inflation to go potentially much, much higher. Now, because of this, what we'll find is the US dollar can tend to weaken quite substantially from this. Now, previously, if we go have a look at the DXY, and this is the US dollar index, which measures the strength of the dollar. We saw that we had a rate cut in September last year. So if I go back to where that was, it was around here somewhere. And you can see that coming into that rate cut, look at how much the US dollar dropped in value. I'm not sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. Right here, you can see how much the US dollar dropped in terms of value. Oops, I opened up a few too many tabs. Looks like I'm not just Matty Stella's having those technical difficulties today. But you can see that that led the US dollar to a plummet quite hard, approximately 6%. If we go back now, we have a look at what happened to Bitcoin at that exact same period when the US dollar dropped. What you're going to notice is that gave us this big run straight up here. So there is a correlation between a weakening dollar and a stronger Bitcoin. If the dollar gets weaker, we tend to see pumps in Bitcoin, which then filters through down to altcoins. And what we saw yesterday or day before was that now that interest rates have been cut, it's expected that the dollar can get much weaker. And that is what usually has given us those really strong last couple of quarters of the year, is if we get those interest rate cuts. So looking quite bullish in terms of that. And last time we had those rate cuts, it helped us out quite a lot. Actually helped the market to go from its low of about 54,000 up to about $107,000, which gave us a 100% move. Now, one thing to take notice of is last time they cut rates, which was here in September, they got a 50-point cut. Okay, and that's what triggered that big bull market. But before the big bull market came, it didn't come without a very quick flush. If I can zoom in here, it had a pump as it was anticipated. It then got its flush, okay, where it came down. You can see price dropped from say 66 down to 58, which is about a 10% drop before then starting to trend up and then factoring that rate cut in. So very similar to what we're seeing right now. It's helped me to come to my my thesis. We're going to call it that just a quick pullback down can be on the cards if you're heavily leveraged right now in massive positions because you think that we're just going to go to the moon. Make sure to be careful, because if usually 9 out of 10 times, if everyone is thinking that exact same hypothesis, what you're going to find is that the market is going to say, hey, no, F you, bang, straight in the other direction, just to stop out all that liquidity. So rate cuts have been at record highs. And to top it off, Fed Jerome Powell was asked about the potential of a stock market bubble with rate cuts at record highs. His response was he's focused on containing inflation and unemployment. Now, this is the last time the Fed cut rates by 25 points. The US dollar absolutely plummeted. And we know what happened in that time period. We saw a massive run in the price of Bitcoin. But the rate cut that we had yesterday made history. And this is because this is the first Fed interest rate cut where inflation has been at such a high of 2.9% in the last 30 plus years. The decision was clearly driven by the labor market portion of the Fed's dual mandate. Basically, whatever they're going to go and say, this is Trump telling Jerome Powell, hey, fix your shit or you're going to get sacked. And if you guys are enjoying this alpha so far, please, guys, smash that like button and consider subscribing so you can tune into these calls every Friday. So what we're also seeing now is there is a high chance that we are going to get an entire 50 basis points interest rate cut before the end of 2025. Now, go back to what I was saying earlier. This is what happened last time we got that 50 basis points cut. Is the market going to expect something similar? If we can get a 100% pump from where we are now, then we could see Bitcoin at around that $250,000 mark before the end of the year. Now, I'm not going to say that that is what's going to happen. You know, I like to take it one day at a time as a trader because, you know, it's it really is the wild, wild west trading crypto. So we do need to take it one day at a time. However, the data is looking quite positive to be bullish for these next couple of months on our side. So really, really focused on that for the minute. So if we are predicting, and if I just go over to the CME FedWatch tool, this is one of the websites I like to check to anticipate what probabilities are. We always look at probabilities. I know there's a couple of guys that have picked on me a few times in the chat. Lewis, where are you today, mate? But the probability that we can see for October 29 is we are going to get another rate cut. Again, We get that rate cut. What happens? People borrow more money. What happens to some of that money? It ends up in crypto and ends up in investments, in real estate, wherever it may be, but tends to flow into the markets, which helps us with bullish momentum. So get excited, guys. I think that, I can't give. Nobody's got a crystal ball, okay? Nobody's got a crystal ball. But what we like to do is we like to look at the data and say, well, if this has happened before, and I want you guys to go and do some of your own homework, you can go check this for yourself. But if you were to go back and have a look, every time interest rate cuts every time interest rates cuts happened and more stimulus came into the market, what happened to the price of Bitcoin? And I can tell you guys, both Bitcoin, S&P 500, there's been a very, very high probability that we have seen a small little pump on the announcement with a nice little dump after that a couple of days later, and then boom, a nice big fat juicy run that we're all waiting for not long after. So the Fed rate cut 1%, and that gave Bitcoin a nice pump, whilst altcoins, it allowed them to jump 3 to 5%. One thing to consider is when Bitcoin pumps 1%, altcoins tend to do 2%, right? You tend to see double the price action on an altcoin than what you would usually see on Bitcoin. So coming back to what I was saying here earlier, tonight, if we come down and sweep these lows, right, and we drop down, say, 4.7%, which is possible, then that could lead to a potential 10% dump occurring over the altcoin. So it is just really critical that you do take a little bit of care tonight when you're overexposed in some different altcoins. Now, guys, who is ready to talk about altcoins in that perspective? Because I have the alpha for you guys today. I'm excited to share with you the altcoins, not only that I'm looking at, but some really exciting announcements that have just come out, just happened in the last 10 hours. Not many people are talking about this right now. So make sure you smash like. I'm going to refresh. I want to see how many likes I have right now. And if I have, we have 14. If I can get that up to 20, I'm going to share some juicy altcoins at the end. But first off, guys, what we are seeing is, has anybody used the Base network before? Base is a layer 1 on Ethereum owned by Coinbase. And for however long, Coinbase have turned around and said that they are not going to have their own token. Now, the reason for that was because in the US, there was just so much bullshit that they had to get around, so much legislation, so much like the SEC trying to sue everyone who made a crypto company. And it was just, I'm going to call it a massive schmozzle, right? It was a big schmozzle. It was hard to get shit done in the US. And Coinbase, being that US company, would have came instantly under strife. Now, the other day, the CEO of Coinbase came out on X and said that they are exploring to create their own base token. And whilst I think a majority of these base tokens, it may just be a rumor right now, okay? I think that there may be an airdrop on the base network for people who have used the base ecosystem before. So that's unconfirmed as of right now. But I looked into base and I said, okay, if Base is going to launch their own tokens, I need to look at some of the projects that are running within the Base ecosystem. So the first one that I'm looking at is Aerodrome. Okay, so Aerodrome, you can see it has had a nice little push ever since the announcement did come out. One thing I like about Aerodrome is that it's going to be, well, it is pretty much the number one decentralized exchange that's for Base. Okay, you got to remember that people are going to go and get their Base tokens from Coinbase or wherever they're going to get them. They're going to send them to their MetaMask wallets. They're going to go do their transactions. Where are they going to do it? On a DEX. What's that DEX going to be? Aerodrome. What happens when a transaction happens on Aerodrome? There's fees involved. Aerodrome profits as a company. And if Aerodrome is profiting more substantially by people swapping their Base tokens for whatever it might be, what you'll probably find is that Base could see some bullish momentum come in. So that's one of the coins I'm watching right now. And let's have a quick look at the chart. Let's go Aero USDT, and I'm just going to open up the perpetuals link for now. So right now it's not exactly looking as juicy as what I would like for an entry right now. I'm going to see if I can open this up on the USDT pair instead of the futures. So just give me a second. Let's just open up here. Okay, there we go. So what I'm seeing on the chart, pretty much the same thing, isn't it? What I'm seeing right now is we do have this strong level of resistance. Let me just get my rectangle tool out. You can see price is very well getting trapped around this area. Some would call this a head and shoulders. I wouldn't. Some people would probably look at this and say, "Oh, nice. Got a little head there. Sorry, a shoulder there. Fucking massive head." And then looking at a potential breakout, probably not. No. I'd be waiting to see a nice breakout of this level, a nice retest, and then I'll be looking at sending that in the upwards direction. What I don't like about this right now for an entry for me is I'm seeing that we are starting to see early signs of a rejection on the RSI, and it's happening at around the 60 level, so around that midway point of the RSI. And I can see there's almost a bearish divergence starting to be put in on the stochastic indicator. Now, historically, when we've seen the stochastic indicator quite high for a period of time, that has more or less told us that the momentum of that move in that direction may be starting to die off a little bit. And that's why I'll be waiting for that to reset. I'm probably going to set some alerts, I should say, for around the 98-cent mark if I can get myself some entries there. But I will wait, see what price does around that area. And of course, I'm looking for things like bullish confirmations at this level. Might see a nice bullish in a couple of bullish engulfings, a bullish divergence, whatever it may be. I'll be looking around that area for potential indicators that we are going to bounce from that level. So around the 98 cents mark is where I have my eyes on. I'm currently not in any positions on Aero right now. I'm waiting to see what happens. But I need to talk about another coin. Well, this is like two coins in one. So there's something that's been happening for the last couple of weeks on Hyperliquid, which a majority of you guys have probably heard about. And that's the fact that Hyperliquid is basically bringing in a lot of fees. I just in the chat, just having a look there, I could see Samuel Thompson. Sammy's one of the head coaches at Empire Crypto Trading. If you want to jump into our platform, make sure to click the link in the chat below, and you'll be able to access our premium live calls. Sammy's actually our airdrop coach, and what he's saying is that those on the Thursday call are positioned nicely for the base airdrop. They do airdrop farming live, so make sure if you do want to get yourself some airdrops to jump on that call. Link is in the description of this video. But Hyperliquid have been generating a big amount of fees from people using their platform. You can see here in this screenshot, Hyperliquid was generating around 1.2 million. And there's something happening at the moment where the Hyperliquid company, let's call it, the founders of Hyperliquid, they're taking a percentage of this fee revenue and they're going and buying back their own token. If we have a look at Hyperliquid, you can see that it's just been on a massive upwards trajectory because more people are using it. It's generating more fees. That means every day they have more and more money to just go back and essentially buy their own token. Okay, so one coin to look at is Hyperliquid. I'm not going to do too much of a chart on that right now because essentially Hyperliquid isn't actually the play that I'm looking at here. I think this move, whilst we could potentially see some more bullish action on this as buybacks continue to happen. Right now, for me, there's a bigger play at focus. Okay, and that bigger play is going to be, for me personally, that is going to be World Liberty Financial. So a post here from Marcos Crypto. World Liberty Financial, WLFI might be about to explode. 99.81% of the community is backing a 100% POL fee buyback and burn. If it passes, World Liberty Financial will continue to remove tokens from circulation. Now, we need to look at this in two ways, okay? And correct me if I'm wrong, Sammy, you're in the chat, so I'm pretty sure you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here. But Hyperliquid, they're taking the money from the fees, they're buying their own token, but I'm not sure if they're burning the token right now. So they may be just holding the token, and that means that later on, Hyperliquid, is going to come a time where these founders, they own so much of their own token, they've pumped so much of their own bags, that they're probably going to sell it. That's going to create selling pressure, okay? We go back now and we have a look at World Liberty Financial, and what they are doing is they're not only going and buying back their own token from the fees generated, but what they're going to be doing is actually burning those tokens. So if we put that into perspective, okay, let's go to World Liberty Financial, and let's just run some numbers here to see what this could potentially look like. For starters, World Liberty Financial is I'm going to say it's not 1/3, but it's almost 1/3 of Hyperliquid. They're at 16 billion approximately market cap, and you can see World Liberty Financial is at 6 billion, so positioned quite well. Well, Liberty Financial has gone ahead and created their own USDT equivalent, which is called the US1, run by the US government, Donald Trump and his crew. So for me, I look at this and I'm like, this is really, really bullish. So Sammy just put it in the chat that the Hyperliquid are not burning. Okay. Now, where this gets juicy is, let's say, knowing the fact that the US government is behind, has ties with World Liberty Financial, knowing that Trump wants to bring the US economy into the crypto markets, essentially. These big institutions, they want to bring some of their money into the crypto space. They're not using USDT. They're not using USDC. They want to bring it in safely. Where would you do it? Would you put it in would you load on your billions of dollars knowing that the government is behind the project, or would you load on your US dollars onto something like Tether, which has been questioned for the last 10 years, however long it's been, if they actually do have their proof of reserves or their backing of 1-to-1 to US dollar? For me, it just makes very easy sense that there's a very high chance that they're going to go to Trump's project. Now, they're not talking about bringing in millions. They're looking at bringing in potentially billions. If we go back now and we look at this and we say, okay, Hyperliquid, $3.12 million a day in revenue, okay? If this passes, this World Liberty Financial, which right now, there is a 99.81% chance as of this post that this is going to pass. Not only are they going to buy back their coin, okay, but if we run some numbers on this, and I get my calculator out, and just correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not the best when it comes to running numbers, but we get $3.1 million into this, divide that by 0.22, which is for 22 cents, we could see 14 million tokens a day coming off the circulating supply of World Liberty Financial, and that's only based on the fact of $3 million in 24-hour revenue. You got to remember, if there is big money coming into Trump's World Liberty Financial, and it's a big if, okay? But at 14 million, times that by 365, you're taking off 5.1 billion off of the circulating supply a year, which would be about a quarter of the supply if it was at 22 cents still, and if this was the amount of money that was being used to buy back. Even if it's not, okay, we've seen tokens like Ethereum go and do not so much buybacks, but they're lowering their supply. They're becoming deflationary at a rate which has still allowed Ethereum to pump quite heavily. Because when you have a large amount of demand for something and you're removing the supply, not doing a Hyperliquid and sending it to another wallet where they're going to dump on you later potentially, okay? But you're actually taking the coins out of circulation. They're gone forever. Where does that then leave this to look like in the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, even within the short term? I think once this passes, I think there's going to be a bit of a bullish momentum come from that, because the community will start to factor in that, hey, this is what's happening, okay? So definitely keeping my eyes on World Liberty Financial. And if I'm looking at the chart, I full disclosure on this one, but I've already got a long position on this. I'm already in. I got in around here, so around 21 cents. I'm not in a whole big amount of profit right now, but I don't see a reason where this couldn't match the market cap of Hyperliquid at a potential 3x. I'm personally hoping that this would go up to $1. We can see that there is a nice level of resistance here around 36 cents. But hey, even if it does go from here to 36 cents, we're just going back and reclaim that range. Mate, that's 80%. That's 80% gain. Let me know in the chat if you would be happy with an 80% gain. Just let us know who's greedy, who's here for the big 15x's, who's here for the 10x's, who here is happy and just going to be humble and going to say, yep, I've made my 80%. Mad. I want to know who's those kind of people. Also, guys, if you haven't yet already, please smash that like button and hit subscribe if you want more alpha like this. Remember that we do go live every single Friday to bring you guys what's happening within the crypto market. So really, really important. Keep your eyes on World Liberty Financial. And I do have another couple of coins that I do want to talk about today. So next up, we do have the announcement that came out last night. First off, the SEC has gone ahead and paved its new way for crypto spot ETFs with new listing rules, making it a lot easier now for ETFs to be registered with the SEC. They don't have to separately apply. They don't have to go through all this random bullcrap to get it done. It's more or less, yep, this criteria is met. You can get an ETF. One of the biggest things that the SEC want to see right now is the fact that if you've got a futures contract launched on a CBOE or on a certain type of commodity exchange, then you will automatically be approved. So if you have on the CME futures, if you have a XRP futures ETF or a Dogecoin futures ETF, then that means that when you go to apply for your spot ETF, or your ETF that, like we're seeing with Bitcoin and Ethereum, that it can make the process to get that approved much, much easier. And what we saw overnight is that it's official. As of last night, the first ever Dogecoin ETF actually got approved, as well as the first ever XRP ETF. Now, this is huge because now this will allow for big amounts of institutional money to potentially come into these type of coins. Dogecoin, look, it's a bit laughable. It is a meme coin. How much will the big institutions go ahead and load up of Dogecoin? XRP might get, a little bit of a feed from it. XRP is probably the better bet over Dogecoin. I don't know, for those of you who are a bit more degenerate than myself, some of you might like to have a bit of a double in the meme coins. But for me personally, I'll look at this and I'll say, well, this is a great opportunity for both of these coins right now. But keep in mind that we've had an ETF launch for Bitcoin. And let's go back and have a look at the price action that occurred when the ETF launched. Because a lot of traders will look at this and they'll be like, oh, mad, ETF gets launched. And then before they know it, price tends to dump. Now, let's take a look at this section here on the chart of Bitcoin, okay? And this played out 2023 to early 2024. This was when the Bitcoin ETF became live. Now, go back to what I said at the start of this call. Who remembers the pattern that I showed you all? If you have a look here, that pattern played out exactly. You got the initial pump of the FOMO that, an ETF's got to prove. It's going to run to the moon. It's going to pump. Okay, no, it didn't, because then it got smacked straight down. And this was where it allowed the big institutions to buy. You see, not all these big institutions are going to go and buy before they know of the confirmation that the ETF is now live. And that there allows for all these people who took all this leverage, okay, all these people who stacked massive longs. What you probably would have found is a lot of them are retail traders, and they probably had their stop losses sitting here, okay? That would have led to about, I don't know, I'm just going to say a rough figure. Let's say there was $300 million of stop losses sitting at this level right here. What that meant was that if this big guy wanted to buy $300 million worth of that coin without pumping the market, he knows the stop losses are here. They manipulate the price, send it down. They all get stopped out. Everyone's stop losses triggers all at once, and that then basically they sell into that big institution's buy order. The institution gets the best price, and then they run it up. Okay? So thumbs up if you're understanding what I'm saying there. So right now, I'm looking at XRP, and I'm looking at Dogecoin, but I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, okay, ETF just got approved. Maybe we'll get that same bit of a dump before things start to, before the ETF starts to get a bit of buying pressure, starts to go up. Same thing as what we're seeing with Dogecoin. Let's open up Doge. You can see we got a nice pump into the fact of that there's going to be a confirmation of the ETF. We've got that now. I expect a bit of a shakeout, probably a retest around that 24 cents mark. I'm going to be keeping my eyes on here and also keeping my eyes on around these levels here. Once again, as we approach those levels, I'll be looking for my bullish divergences, looking for some nice bullish confirmations from those points there before potentially swinging it back around. And, if we go back to also for those of you who have been here for the whole stream, you'll know that earlier I showed you guys this pattern that's been continuously playing out. You've got to think that this is all kind of, to me personally, it's all looking like it's starting to line up where if this comes back down, this will then dump those altcoins, 3, 5, 8%. Then that will basically allow to get all of those positions where they have stopped. Come down to here. Let's just say, get the ruler, let's have a look. Say 12%, 13%. Bitcoin dumps 5%. There's a chance that Doge will also cop that and come down to that 24 cents range. And that will allow for me to then get those entries. So to recap, with these ETFs, we only saw today the first ever Dogecoin ETF got approved, and we only saw $6 million in trading volume, which is 6 times the average ETF volume on launch day. So there is definitely interest for this ETF, 6 times the amount of volume of what we've seen on for standard ETFs. That is huge. Don't get me wrong. Put that in the grand scheme of things, though. You go and have a look at how much money is coming into the Solana, the Bitcoin ETFs. Let's have a quick look. Bitcoin ETF, you can see yesterday had $163 million come in. You have a look at the Ethereum ETF, and daily that's getting anywhere between 100 and a couple of 100 million a day. But then we look at one of the more recently launched ETFs. We have a look at Solana, and you can see that Solana, same thing, it's very low at the start. They always start off quite low, 9 million, 10 million, 19.1 million. And you're seeing Doge on its first day outperform about a whole, pretty much, you know what? If you have a look at this, pretty much a whole week of Solana inflows was bought up in one day of the Doge ETF. So I was seeing in the chat, Jordan DaCosta, who let the dogs out? Mate, you're not wrong, man. This thing it definitely has some interest from the ETF. But like I said, I'm not going to buy into the FOMO just yet. I'm going to wait for a bit of a pullback, because I think that tonight we're going to see a lot of volatility, given the fact that we're seeing that triple witching. And if Bitcoin pulls back, it'll allow me to get those deeper entries on some of these altcoins, which personally I'd rather take the cheaper entry and buy at the cheaper price than FOMO in now, and then be stuck sitting holding a bag at negative 10%. And for those of you who trade leverage, you'll know that sitting there holding a 10x long on or even a 5x long when you're down 10%. Put you at negative 50%, you're sitting there kind of panicking a little bit at times if you've gone a little bit too heavy. So just something to keep your eyes on. So to recap, guys, what do I think is happening with the market? I think we may get a bit of volatility coming in tonight, which could potentially give us a little bit of a pullback. I do think that midterm we are looking quite good. Just to go quickly back over what that looks like, I think pullback here and then back up to the top of this range. I want to see, before I think we're going to new highs, I want to see price hold above that top resistance at around 120,000. Keep your eyes on World Liberty Financial. Keep your eyes on Hyperliquid. Have a look at XRP and Doge. And, of course, Aerodrome. Not one to be missed right now. I'm not telling you to buy. Once again, I'm not your financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. But for me personally, I'll be watching Aerodrome. I'm not going to buy it right now. If you missed when I covered where I'm going to enter, go back and watch this video later. But I'm going to be looking for some potential entries on those coins for my own bag. So, guys, I hope you all enjoyed today's stream. Make sure you hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment if you enjoyed this content. Let me know what you want to see more of. If you want to see more of Mat Stella, who is currently MIA today as his laptop was broken, you're probably going to see him on next week's stream for some technical analysis and some more live trading. So, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap it up here for today. I'm going to see you all next Friday. Have a